Baltimore players said, Earl Thomas, you're not screwing this locker room up. So Seattle, Baltimore, Pete Carroll, Harbaugh, player coaches are like, we're out. Is Earl Thomas too toxic to get back in the league? Dallas rumors. What do you make of that stuff?
You know, it's very rare that a player of that caliber gets released this late into the offseason, into training camp. It's even rarer that I make 5 texts and 5 phone calls Saturday and Sunday when this is going down, and how upfront the people connected to this situation on the Ravens side were saying that this was not a good teammate and not a good guy to have in the building, and that this was not the only point of reason why he's out of there, but the boiling point, and maybe truly the last item of many, many. Look, Brandon Williams, known as Big Baby there, is their big defensive tackle, beloved guy. Last year, they lose in week 4 to the Cleveland Browns, and Earl Thomas apparently had an altercation with Brandon Williams, who's one of the defensive leaders, has been there forever, and he tried to start something with him. All right, then he was late to meetings. Then you go to this past weekend with the Chucky Clark incident. Of course, there's an altercation between the two of them, but then for him to post the all 22 footage on his Instagram page to prove a point, it's like, well, are you with us or not with us? And the comment I got from someone that's close to the situation said they signed Mark Ingram last year on the same day that they signed Earl Thomas. Mark Ingram has been the ultimate teammate, the ultimate veteran leader, and has helped every young guy in that locker room come along. Earl Thomas was what they hoped he would be, what Ingram is, and he hasn't been. So they get rid of Ingram and Thomas. But here's the point, Colin. Everyone on Twitter says, oh my gosh, Cowboys can sign him, Seahawks can sign him, Bucks can sign him, Browns can sign him. The list of teams that everyone on Twitter wants to see him signed by is not dictated by any of that. It's dictated by what the marketplace is. And here we are 2 days removed, and I don't have a suitor for Earl Thomas at the moment. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler who still has football left. And right now I can't tell you a team that's looking to sign him.
There's so many interesting stories this year. Like I kind of feel like I know who the good teams are, and I kind of know who I feel the bad teams are. And then there's 1 or 2 teams, and both could be in New York with the Jets and the Giants. And I'm like, I just don't know. I see talent with the Giants. Give me the whole Joe Judge thing. I saw a story the other day. Bill Parcells is like, just be yourself. New York media can eat you up. What are you seeing, hearing about the Giants? Because Daniel Jones, I was wrong, is way better than I thought he would be. He looks like a young Eli. That potentially there's something there. What are you hearing about the Giants?
Yeah, that was a great article by Steve Serby in the New York Post saying that Parcells told Joe Judge, don't worry about everything. Just be yourself and be true to who you are, and the rest will happen. What that means is Joe Judge has come in with a very strong hand. I don't know if this has been national news, but he was running full contact drills last week on the goal line, a drill called the Nutcracker, which was basically an offensive player has the ball here, the defensive player has here, and it's almost like an Oklahoma drill. You blow the whistle and they go. One player is going to go down, the other one isn't. Who's going to be the bigger man in that situation? And the media was watching it. It was like, that's not what Pat Shurmur was doing here. That is not what Ben McAdoo was doing here. And truthfully, in a post-2011 CBA, we haven't seen much like that. And yet Joe Judge was like, this is what we want to do. We want to do it disciplined. We want to do it safe. And we want to have contact because the Steelers are coming in week 1, and we're not going to be singing Kumbaya. TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick are going to be hitting. So he is laying down the law, and he's got players running laps when they make mistakes. That includes Saquon Barkley. And position coaches have even jumped in on that. Some position coaches, when they make a mistake, are running with the players. So you see that, and you're like, all right, this is the NFL. That's not going to work. This guy's 38. He's trying to be Belichick Jr. It never works. And yet, you speak to people, Joe Judge has a sense of humor. Joe Judge is well-liked by the players. And this is a really young Giants team. Daniel Jones isn't the only young guy. You're talking Saquon is still young, and the leaders on the defensive side of the ball are young. And Colin, this team is buying into this approach. It's the complete opposite of what they've had in the past. So it's true. You're not going to be tackling all summer long because of what we just dealt with the coronavirus. And in a post-CBA world, there's not a lot of contact. Joe Judge is like, well, we got to tackle at some point. And I promise you on September 13th or 14th, when the Steelers come to town, they're not going to be soft on us because of what we've had to deal with. So I think it's working now. Let's check in October if these players are still hitting in practice and how that's going over. But right now, they're buying in.
So it was about a year ago that Sean McVay was the talk of the league. And, I mean, he got to the Super Bowl. And, I mean, if you had a cup of coffee with him, you got a job interview. And now you look this morning and you're like, Gurley's gone. Niners look better. Russell Wilson's not going away. Here comes Arizona. Really interesting season for boy wonder Sean McVay. Goff got the big contract now. Brandon Cook out. It looks like they've missed on a couple of free agent signings. Where are the Rams today? What do you hear?
It's amazing, isn't it? How quickly a year can change things for perception on the outside. Not only is Sean McVay no longer the boy wonder, I don't know anybody who's picking them to even compete in the NFC West right now. They're in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I spoke with him for a long time earlier this week. And what I come away from talking with Sean on a personal level is that during this pandemic and all that stuff, he did find a balance in work and life. Meaning what? Meaning he knows the amount of time he needs to put into work, but he also said there are things outside of work. And he's also delegating things, which is not his style. They hired Kevin O'Connell from the Washington football team, who was their offensive coordinator. He gets blown out when they fire the staff. Sean McVay hired him, and it's not like he's some ceremonial offensive coordinator. No, he's going to be working directly with Jared Goff. And McVay also hired a young defensive coordinator, a 38-year-old named Brandon Staley, who comes from Denver, where Vic Fangio was, and is letting him run the defense. So now you almost have this guy who was so in the weeds and almost coaching every position last year to now taking a 30,000-foot view, being the CEO of the team, saying, okay, I can let go a little bit. Let's see the big picture here. I think the Rams are going to be much improved. I also think you're going to see a huge outburst from Cam Akers, the rookie running back who's going to be filling in for Todd Gurley. And I wouldn't sleep on a player named Josh Reynolds, who one of the reasons they got rid of Brandon Cooks is that Josh Reynolds has elevated his game. He's a wide receiver they really like. So you look at all the stars on this team, you look at McVay, it's the same people we were all hyping up, and they added Jalen Ramsey from last year. I think the Rams are going to be a sneaky team, and that's crazy to say considering they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
So, the Cam thing's interesting. I don't want to bore you with what I talked about earlier, but I said,
I listened.
So Popovich had Tim Duncan to kind of carry the water, take a pay cut, get barked at in front of the unit, and it was great. But when Duncan left and Kawhi came in, Kawhi's like, I'm not interested in that role. So Belichick similarly had his Duncan. It was Tom Brady. Pay cuts, bark at him, carry the water within the kind of rigid system. He leaves. It's interesting. Belichick, though, unlike Popovich, brings in Cam, has been effusive with his praise. Yesterday, for the third time in a week, I can't believe how coachable he is. My theory on that, Schrags, is that Belichick's figured out, listen, there are no other Bradys out there. I have got to be viewed within NFL player circle, player-friendly, evolving. I'll take new styles. That's what it feels like. I've never seen him compliment a player like he's done Cam 3 times in the last 2 weeks. What do you make of it?
Well, then you haven't seen him talk about Johnny Hecker, the punter on the Rams. He loves his special teams. No, it's true. This has been effusive praise, but it's also been such a difference over the last week of how we're hearing reports out of New England. Now, look, Cam Newton has a lot going against him in this season. And when you say going against him, what do you mean? Well, it's an abridged season. He's been in New England for 30 days, and suddenly he needs to now learn the playbook, get up to speed, and compete, and do it so at a level that Belichick and Josh McDaniels demand. And yet, that said, I think we've spoken about this on this show. I think you're going to expect a different offense, at least aesthetically. It's going to be one that uses a mobile quarterback quite a bit. And I would almost look at his Carolina days and see how they used him in those offices instead of Belichick reinventing the wheel. Him and Josh McDaniels saying what worked best for Cam Newton. Let's use that. What I love about this is I see Cam Newton dancing. I see Cam Newton being himself. I see Cam Newton in a great mood. And I don't see Belichick suffocating that. And I don't see Belichick saying, okay, enough of the dancing during warmups. There's no place for that. Instead, we get B-roll from these practices. Cam's throwing. There's Jed Fish, the coach, talking with him. He's doing all that. And then in between, he's serving as a high-energy guy for players like Jared Stidham and Brian Hoyer, who are there as well. So to your point, I think everyone needs to be flexible in 2020. I think Belichick seems to be as flexible as anyone. And even if he is giving praise to Cam Newton publicly and you think that might be a work or that might be something that he's doing intentionally, whatever works. I honestly think that the Patriots are up against it with all the players that they lost and, of course, a new quarterback and a new system that they're building. They want Cam Newton to feel as emboldened and as fulfilled and as satisfied going into the season as they possibly can, considering such an abridged short off season for him to learn the offense.
By the way, I got to ask you this because Schrager's, Joey, he's very good at this. So a couple of years ago, Schrager was like, this kid named Patrick Mahomes is going to blow the league up. And I was like, Schrager, what? And he's like, I'm seeing video. And Schrager was right. So I'm going to rely on you with Tua. Somebody this morning said he's third string behind Josh Rosen. Okay, you're tied in. I know you're tied into the Dolphins because you always have good insight with them. Yeah. Give me the Tua updates. For America, this counts. The rest of it's Twitter nonsense. What do we know about Tua, the camp, the Dolphins, all that stuff?
Had a schedule, looks great. Had an amazing pass yesterday that was caught online that he threw, and it's still jarring seeing a left-handed quarterback back in the league. But I would say be patient. Just the same reasons I just said on Cam Newton. Abridged off season, still learning everything, and has a great mentor in Ryan Fitzpatrick. Long-term, Colin, I don't think it's going to be right out of the gates, but Tua will be the quarterback long-term and will be awfully good there in Miami.
All right, Schrager. Great seeing you, Schrager. You look happy. You got football. It's a nice time for you and your family.